really been a revolution. The only thing I didn't see there was the coin box. Have you ever used a coin box, Sarah?
Yes.
Do you even know what that is?
Oh my gosh. Yes, yeah. I used coin boxes in high school.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it's been quite a journey, Gideon, in terms of the evolution of communication. I mean, looking at some of those cell phones, we had the ones that you'd have to dial, then wait for it to, spring back, then dial another different number. And how have you seen that evolution come about?
Okay, for starters, the dialing back was, at the time, the technology was a bit different, because we used to use radio waves at the time, yeah. Nowadays, and then we moved to physical lines where we were using actual cables, and then you'd connect. That's why you'd see like there would be a switchboard, and then someone would switch from here to here, and say, "Give me."
In fact, one of the ones they didn't show there, I remember, was the one that you'd have to koroga, so to speak. Then it would go to an operator. And the operator now would actually have to
switch. Exactly. Nowadays we're using satellite to communicate, which is very good. And now, actually, that's most of how mobiles communicate, via the airwaves.
Right. Sarah, in terms of how this has affected our way of even communicating one to another. I remember a time if you had to call somebody, say, in a certain village, you'd have to literally agree on the time and place, because you'd be calling the neighbors, and then the neighbors have to go get them or something like that.
Yeah.
We've come a really long way. I think even from the times we used to send telegrams, just the specific number of characters you could use, and it could only go so far. And then now we've come down to emails, and now we have our phones. Communication has really, really advanced. It's not like it used to be in the olden days. Yes, the spring dialing and all that stuff, or even just the slow mail. I don't know how many people use the post office these days. I don't think there are many, or even these landlines.
Corporate institutions.
Post offices, like if I wanted to send a message to you, like even when you were calling us for the show this morning, there's a time when you'd have to do that via the post office, but now that doesn't happen anymore. It was just a simple phone call, or even just down to a WhatsApp message, or just a text message, and that's a done deal.
Right.
But there was a time when you have to go to the post office. But yes, banks still use them. But I think these post offices are mostly just used for like documents and stuff.
Yeah,
or if you have to send packages.
I guess even with corporate institutions, that is also changing, because now you can get your statements online.
Yes.
And
even on your phone via SMS.
Exactly. But I guess the challenge also remains when internet connectivity is also not. We cannot assume everybody has internet connectivity, especially when you're not in the urban areas.
Very true, but though in Africa we do have actually in Kenya we have a high internet penetration rate, So so far, since I think Kibaki came in power, internet penetration has actually, I think, doubled in terms of how many people can reach access internet. Now also with telephony, people who have a mobile phone, a small smartphone, you can actually use it to connect to the internet. So nowadays, internet now is becoming almost like a necessity, or something more or less like electricity or water. And then now that is what you use to communicate, and it's become a necessity.
Actually, I remember, I think one of the MCA, was it an MCA, or one of the legislators was pushing for the fact that internet connectivity should become one of the basic necessities, like water, how the government provides water, that connectivity should be something, because in this day and age, really, the cell phone as we know it now, compared to where we are coming from, initially it was just used for telephone calls. Really, you just use it to, hello, how are you doing? It was voice calls. But now it has really changed to almost anything, really.
You can access everything. Even if you're lost, you can use your phone to find your way around. And I think these days, if you bought someone a phone without internet.
Do they even have phones that don't have internet connectivity in this day and age?
Oh yeah, they're still there. Yeah, they don't have internet.
They're still there. I think the old phones. But in as much as communication has advanced, we can't take away the fact that even as you're progressing, the old gadgets that we used to have, in some places they still come in handy. And sometimes those are still the things that people fall back to. For instance, I know people who have two phones. Even if they have the the most recent gadget, the most up-to-date gadget, they still have a kabambe that they work with, because they still feel that that can't let you down.
Right.
That one without
and
internet.
I can see their phone booth as we knew them, and that call box was one of the most annoying things in this whole wide world. Why? Because you'd put your coins there, sometimes they'd be swallowed, or it would even refuse to go through. Then sometimes you go from phone booth to phone booth, or there are times you'd even find a queue.
Exactly. Yes.
You'd literally have to queue. And then from the phone booth, we also moved to Simu ya Jamii.
Yes, there was a Simu ya Jamii.
Oh, yeah.
But they were very expensive at the time. But then, of course, the infrastructure at that time was not laid out properly. And then we actually just evolved. Yeah, we had now, besides investing in better infrastructure, at that time, Safaricom had taken out a loan to literally build infrastructure. And now that's why they're the leading telecommunication company in Kenya. Yeah.
The only thing I don't understand so far, and maybe George, Gideon, sorry, you'd be a better place to advise, is why we have moved so fast in technology of the cell phone, in its software, its applications, its versatility in usability, but the battery still does not work. I call them smartphones with stupid batteries.
It's true to some extent. That okay, the trick here was finding a balance between how good your phone is performing with the how the power that is consuming. Now, the thing about most manufacturers nowadays, they pump in so much hardware in terms of how much RAM you have, how fast your processor is, how good your screen is. They don't really focus on how much the battery life. Until recently, where they now started having a balance between the two. It's not yet perfect, but they're still working on it. Nowadays, you can have a phone that, a smartphone, some of them do have 2 to 3 days battery life, depending on actually the software that you're using. But then we still haven't had, we still don't have those Nokias where you charge them once in a week.
Yeah, in a weekend, and it continues. Although they say it's also down to usability and the fact that the applications are constantly
updating and always online.
Okay, let's look at the cell phone now as we know it as a gadget of communication and how versatile it is in terms of just communication. You can access your bank, your money. You literally, your cell phone has become your life partner, as it were.
Everyone is using cell phones for everything. Like I said at the beginning, even just when you're lost, people have become so attached to their cell phones. When you don't ask for directions anymore because you have your Google Maps there with you.
Right.
You don't. If you have questions to ask, you have your phone right there. You can ask.
You can Google.
You know, where do I go out for lunch? Such simple things. Everyone, guys, are just relying on their phones, and I think we've just adapted to it so much. It's become a way of life.
Okay, but there's also the aspect of how it has changed how we communicate. For instance, if you just look at the English language, there has been word that it's literally been butchered, you know, when it comes to how you communicate on cell phone, and not just on cell phone, but on the various social media platforms. For instance, if you look at Twitter, it gives you, is it 140 characters that you can only use. So as a result, people have had to develop abbreviations, for example, that one can use, and there are all sorts. You know, for instance, you've got BRB for be right back, and there are also. So how has that affected the language that we have always known and have always used differently?
Okay, for our age, as Sarah was saying, we're in the information age where we can use our phones to do literally everything, and such comes with abundance of information, and we need to put it in a way that you can convey your message very fast and easily, and we'll be able to understand each other properly. So this was all the way from the Egyptians. They used to do it with hieroglyphics and stuff like that. So nowadays, it's in English, we're using more of abbreviations to communicate and pass on the message better. So every now and then we have things on Twitter like Man Crush Monday, Woman Crush Wednesday. Yeah,
even,
such things.
Even that is not all written now. It's
not
just
written
down
out.
to
It's
three letters. You know, WCW.
But now, like now, Man Crush Mondays and what was the other one?
Woman Crush
Wednesdays. Is that international language, or is it just restricted to the borders of Kenya?
It's actually an international language.
Yes.
Yeah, it cuts across Twitter throughout in US, in UK, in Kenya. everywhere.
But you also have some that are localized.
Oh,
Yes,
like
definitely.
GFF.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Other localized ones that we may have.
Well,
I know there's GFF, there was another one, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, yeah, you've got those local ones, you've got the likes of LOL, which are international, OMG.
OMG, yes.
Is that-
Some
is
of them
that-
are actually in the dictionary nowadays.
yes.
The
they
Urban
actually-
Dictionary.
Yes.
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 Not just a Google dictionary.
Not just no. They're actually like
They're incorporated in the
in the
dictionary.
actual
So they've
dictionaries.
been integrated.
Yes.
But also that has also developed, especially now when it comes to chat with the development of platforms like WhatsApp, where now you even have, rather than just words, you have pictures that you communicate with. And I know there are emojis that there's even new ones that have come up. But before the emojis, like now when you had the 3310, there were, what are they called?
Small smileys.
Emoticons.
Emoticons.
Yes.
What's the difference between emoticons and emojis, for example?
Emoticons are you have to use characters, a sequence of characters, and then when you look at it, it forms some kind of an image, like a full colon, hyphen, and a closing bracket. That's a smiley face. But now that advanced, and it's now people are using emojis. Emojis are now basically what one would call the smiley faces and all this. And then we also still have memes, which are still also used to pass across the same messages. We have GIFs, which are now like, let me say, like short video clips or something of the sort. Yeah, to just pass across messages. But I think the reason why people are adapting into this is because
and we have some of those emojis
time.
there. And I think they've recently added emojis, and one of the additions I saw or I noticed is the fact that now we have race included.
Yes.
Yes, rather than just, yeah.
It became an issue because people were like, okay, why am I not included? People want to personalize them so much. So, and race has always been an issue. If it's only white, if it was only white emojis, black people would have an issue. If it was only black emojis, the white people would have an issue. And basically all other races. So it has been brought down to race. It's been brought down to sexuality in terms of even on WhatsApp emojis, they even added emojis such that there's a girl and a girl, there's a man and a man, there's a man and a child, and the child, even choice of gender, it comes down to gender.
It's
the
down
child
to
can
that
either
right
be
now.
a woman, be a girl or a boy. So yeah, it's adapting to
include the
incorporate
whole-
everyone because it's becoming a global language. Yes.
And then the fact that now, rather than use words, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words.
Yes.
So now you're able to actually communicate that. But I also noticed that on the emojis, the new ones, you've even got African flags now.
Yes.
We didn't have that before, so that's also a development.
That's a development.
And how far is this expected to go in terms of now developing these emojis?
Okay, now that we're using the emojis, we in forms of communication. Now people are even using them to market. Yeah, you'd find corporates, especially in the first world countries, they use the emojis themselves to communicate. So it's easier to use an emoji or a emoticon to communicate your campaign objective.
Information. As opposed, you don't need a whole billboard to say I'm selling shoes here. You can just upload a simple picture, even on Twitter within that 140 characters. You can just upload a picture, attach an emoji if you want to.
And I guess the beauty of it is that it's reaching so many people, especially depending on how many followers you have or on Facebook. So Gideon, maybe in terms of development, what should we expect the cell phone to develop into as we're winding up? We need to close, but maybe where do you see the cell phone in another maybe 5 years?
Another 5 years. I see it like more or less almost like an identification gadget. Like wherever you go, you swipe to enter. You know, like when I was entering, I was asked for my ID. I'll just have to show them my phone, and that is a unique identifier to me. You can even use it to pay nowadays. If in the likes like of Google Pay and Apple Pay, people just swipe their phone over the counter and they actually pay themselves. They also, in terms of usability, they've been able to focus it so much that I, as a person, Gideon, if I go to a coffee shop, I have an Android app that tells the coffee shop that I'm coming.
That you're coming.
Yeah, and then it tells me, it knows my usual. So by the time I get there, I'm just paying.
They've already done.
Yeah, they've already paid.
I'll have to cut you short because we need to wind up, and the director tells me we are running out of time. And well, that's just technology as it